Okay, so always saying people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today, guys, like always, another weekly analysis for you. On the screen, other pairs that we'll be analyzing today, but make sure you do stay to the end of the video as there is a bonus pair in store. I'll go for my trade for the week first, then take a look at the DXY, then progress into the analysis. If there is a particular pair you do want to see my analysis to, feel free to skip ahead using the timestamps below. But I had one position this week, Euro Yen, which I did close for a loss. I was looking for a big reversal on Euro Yen, as we've done for pretty much all the yen pairs. But Euro Yen and Swiss Yen haven't really fallen over. So I was eager to see if I capitalize on potentially one of those moves. Swiss was just very, very bullish this week, so I stayed away from that one. Euro is kind of showing us rejection in the higher time frames, but it was showing us rejection in the higher time frames. A little bit messy in the lower time frames, but I did get a solid rejection on the 8 hour, nice bearish engulfing candle. However, momentum didn't really sustain with the bears, and looks like we are starting to break to the upside. So I'm going to be a bit more cautious with Euro Yen. I still do have a bearish bias. We're still coming to resistance. You can see on the weekly chart, still just about obeying that resistance level. But with that bullish candle this week, so this massive candle here, it's kind of closed in a bit of an awkward position. Looks like price potentially could be breaking out. So I'm going to be very, very cautious now. With shorting Euro Yen, it's still in resistance, still do have a bearish bias, but because of how that weekly candle is closed, it's giving me a bit of a red flag, and potentially we could see momentum continue. So I'm backing away from Euro Yen a little bit. I'm going to be very, very picky if I do get into another trade next week. But that was it for me. Didn't really have much other than that. I was looking at a few other pairs. USD pairs were crazy this week, so difficult to get into any positions from a swing point of view. Especially with how volatile the market has been. And of course, we had USD fall over heavily this week. Really strong push to the downside. I was looking for a slightly bigger push to the upside first before shorting. I was talking about primarily this doji here. If price can come back and retest that, that would be a nice place for a short, and similar idea on Euro, which we'll get to in a second. But yeah, very strong move to the downside. We're back at major support now. So although I'm still bearish on the USD, now's not the time to be selling, especially as a swing trader. Of course, intraday you can get away, but from a swing point of view, not the best place to be looking to short. So I need price to come back up. If I scoot to the daily chart, there is some support just above us, which will be turned resistance. Naturally, that would be a nice place to short from. Could see a reaction and potentially the continuation of this momentum. There's just so much bearish momentum in the market right now. So I'm still happy to sell the dollar. There's no kind of red flags or reversal just yet. Just the key thing to watch out for is that we're back at support and potentially could see some buyers step back in and potentially reverse price. So being cautious, careful of that. But for now, for the dollar, I do like short still, 101.5 and continuations back into the prior low, keeping it pretty simple. Euro USD, pretty much the inverse of that. Again, a lot of momentum this week, smashing through major resistance, taking out major highs on the left. But overall, not the best time to be looking to buy the market from a swing perspective again. I'm a swing trader, so I'm going to talk primarily from that perspective because the market's already had such a big move. We're very stretched, we're taking up major highs. Yes, we could still go further, but I definitely need price to be back at support before I can base a bullish trade idea. So I've marked out some of these areas, 1.12, 1.11 roughly. If I can get some pullbacks into those levels on the daily chart, I'll be happy to take some longs if price action looks good on my entry time frame, which is most of the time 4-hour chart. So if I can get some pullbacks into these areas, I'll monitor price. If things looks good, I will look to find some entries. Again, my expectation is that momentum is likely to continue. No red flags yet with Euro USD, so my expectation is more upside naturally, and same thing the dollar, more downside naturally as well. So still very bullish on Euro USD, looking for pullbacks, 1.12, 1.12 there. Got my numbers mixed up there, 1.12 and also 1.11 or 115 if you want to be a bit more specific. It looks really good for some longs. Just need price to get there, hopefully a nice corrective pullback, find some entries and targets back at the high, keeping things very simple. But that's the plan next week for Euro USD. Okay, so over to dollar yen. So pretty bearish this week. USD weakness did kind of help that out. Not so much yen strength, but more so the dollar. Again, looking at the higher time frames, I'm expecting a push back into 140. That looks like the next big target for me. We smashed through 150, big psychological level, and also a big zone on the weekly chart. So the next level I likely expect price to get to would be 140. Momentum still looks pretty bearish on the daily, weekly chart as well. So I've marked out some areas where we could pull back into before continuing. So if we drop to the 4-hour chart, you can see some prior support there where a bunch of wicks have collected. Naturally, that would be a nice place for a short. If we don't see much of a pullback, I think 145 will be a nice zone to look at. If we see a slightly deeper pullback, then I'm looking more so at the zone at 148. Nice resistance. We had a very strong impulsive move at kind of the halfway stage during the week. Didn't really amount to much here for dollar yen. Just came back to respect resistance and price tumbled over. So if we can get back there again, solid resistance, a good chance we could see sellers jump back in and see a nice short opportunity there as well. Again, whether you want to swing it all the way back down to the low here is up to you. There will be other more kind of conservative targets you can use to bank your partials or bank your profits, however you want to manage your position. But my expectation is still 140, so it just depends how big of a pullback we have. As long as we don't see anything crazy in the market, I do expect us to roll over to 140. So that's the plan next week for USD JPY. Okay, so USD CAD, we are looking pretty bearish this week because you have to go to the weekly time frame. Look at that candle, huge weekly candle to the downside there. So pretty bearish week. However, we've come back into some major support here, 1.39. So I'm looking to see what we can do at this level. I know it looks like we're slightly closing below, but I need a bit more than that to justify a breakout. Momentum is looking very bearish. Perhaps we could see another big bearish candle taking us to the downside. That could be the case. But for now, we're still kind of more or less in that area. So I'll be monitoring the lower time frames, daily, 4-hour, even hourly chart to see how we react with this area. There could be some nice buying opportunities. And if you are looking to sell it, it would be nice to see price actually have a bit of a bounce there, because we want price to pull back. And there is a nice zone here on the daily stroke 4-hour chart. If we could see price pull back into, that would naturally be a nice place for a short anyway. So that would be what I'd be looking for a sell, or even the low here as well at 1.415, but more so this level here because we had a lovely break, haven't had a retest yet. So that would be a nice place for a short. We are a little bit close to the weekly level, so I probably would be conservative with the way I look to place my targets, and just making sure that if price is starting to find support quickly and rejecting this zone here in particular, I will be looking to close that trade a little bit earlier. But yeah, expectations back to a prior low, wherever that forms, makes for a good target most of the time. So dollar CAD, pretty bearish with this one still overall. I do think eventually 1.39 will break, but looking to see if we can get a pullback from that zone. There could be some nice buys in the counter trend, on a counter trend move, if that's what you're interested in. If you're looking to continue with the sales and continue with the momentum, then of course you're waiting for pullbacks, most likely to continue short in the market. And 1.405 looks good. Also the low there as well, if we do have a slightly bigger pullback, which definitely could happen from a zone like this. So I'll definitely keep an eye on that area there too. But yeah, I'm pretty bearish with dollar CAD, not really interested in buying it. I'm pretty bearish on USD. So kind of all the opportunities I look to take in the market regarding USD pairs will always, not always, but for now at least, for the foreseeable future, will be in favor of dollar weakness until something changes. So I'm more focused on shorting USD right now, and dollar CAD looks like a good short. Lovely momentum, just waiting for a good pullback. 1.405 looks good, also 1.414, and targets at the prior low, keeping things pretty simple. So that's the plan there for dollar CAD next week. Okay, so over to Euro Pound. So Euro Pound, very, very bullish this week. I do think price is coming into a bit of a top soon. You can see this week's candle there, very, very bullish there. But looking at the higher time frames, even the monthly chart, it does look like we're starting to hit some areas of resistance, supply. But I do think we can start to see some sellers come in, potentially a bit of a pullback on this candle. It's just more of an aggressive trade, but it does make sense based on where price is trading and based on how we're trading as well. We saw a lot of momentum initially, but if I drop to the 4-hour chart, you can see we're becoming a bit more corrective now. We're still seeing strong bearish pressure come in. I know that didn't really amount to anything, but it's a sign that the sellers are starting to enter the market and with a bit more success. And I do think price is eventually going to form a bit of a top. So I will be looking to see what we can do around this area here at 0.72, which is trading in that monthly area of supply. So if you look to the left here, well, it depends how you want to class it. If I was looking at supply, I'll probably look at the whole range. in terms of resistance, I'll just focus on the upper wicks there, which we've just about spiked into. So I do think from here we can start to see that candle pull back. I wouldn't be looking for anything crazy though. I'm looking at some support here on the monthly chart as well, around 0.855. I think that would make for a nice support level, which isn't too far away. So not looking for anything too crazy in terms of risk to reward here, because the idea is that we're taking advantage of a pullback, not necessarily a reversal. It could be, we're not to know, but I would take things a bit cautiously just because there's so much momentum with euro pound. And again, resistance doesn't have to hold. We can still go a lot higher. And you can always leave smaller positions to run. But for now, that's what I'm looking at euro pound. If you can see some more rejection around 0.871, 875-ish, that would be nice. And then targets around 0.853, where we found some nice support this week. I think that will look like a decent trade on the 4-hour or even hourly chart. So that's the plan this week for euro pound. Okay, so over to Aussie dollar. So I'm pretty bullish on this one. It looks like we had a big fake out. As you can see, a very heavy bearish candle to the downside. Then price quickly recovered most of that and now looking pretty bullish. You can see on the weekly chart, we just about got a bullish engulfing candle, engulfing all of that price action from last week. That bearish candle alone last week was pretty big. So to see this candle just come back this week and engulf it is a pretty big statement. We had that selling pressure, but completely erased. And now we're looking pretty bullish there with this week. And also, we're trading at major lows here. This is a low from 2022. We just about breached that not long ago. It looks like price just been dancing around that area. And then this candle looked like price was really just breaking through for us to continue. And then this week's candle completely erased that. So now I do think support is holding, and I do expect a bigger move to the upside. So if I can drop to the 4-hour chart, what I'm looking at is pullbacks now. So ideally it would be nice for price to come back and retest this area, but I'm not too sure if we'll see a big enough pullback for that. Definitely an area we'll still keep an eye on, because just because I don't think a pullback will happen doesn't mean it won't happen. Sometimes you do get bigger pullbacks, and there can be really great opportunities, and you don't want to miss that if it does happen. But a little bit more kind of closer to the action, we got this level here at 0.62, really nice support that could come in action again, and we could capitalize on some long opportunities, and again targets more or less back to the high there around 0.64. So pretty bullish here. An Aussie dollar, of course, fits the narrative of more USD weakness. Again, don't see any red flags for that just yet. Until I do, I'm going to look to attack USD to the downside. And Aussie dollar looks like a really nice pair for it. I think out of Aussie dollar and the bonus pair coming out later in the video, those are my two favorite USD pairs right now. So just looking for pullbacks and long opportunities, 0.62, 0.612, targets around 0.64. But again, you can have targets before that as well. But that's the plan there for Aussie dollar next week. Pretty 50-50. I think there's some nice levels to buy from. I think there's some nice areas to sell from. At the moment, we're coming more towards those areas of selling opportunity, so I do like them. But firstly, on the higher time frames, you can see where we're trading. Massive support here on our left. We came crashing through that or into that area more so last week. Then this week, again, big wick to the downside, and price recovered most of that and actually managed to close back above. Not in the same case as Aussie dollar, where we had the bullish engulfing candle, but at least price is showing a lot of heavy rejection to the downside with these wicks, and showing some nice recovery closing back above support. So I do think potentially we might find support here long term and push up for NZD CAD. But for now, the market is still a little bit corrective, dropping to the daily time frame. You can see not really convincing candles. Drop to the 4-hour chart, a lot of wicks, slow moving candles, at least compared to the selling pressure we had coming down. So as we do approach an area like this, let's go back to the daily chart. An area like this is where we had this consolidation just before that huge drop. This is where all that selling momentum came from. So as we correctively push back to an area like this, naturally you're going to see some sellers come back into the market and probably see a bit of a dip in price. Now, I wouldn't be looking for a swing all the way back to the swing low here, which is why I said, if I'm kind of favoring price to do two things in terms of sells and buys. If you do see a nice sell setup, which does take us back into this area of support, I think if we can start to see some strong rejection there, we'll probably get a nice bounce and price will recover itself. So I do like the buys longer term, but for now, at least for next week anyway, I do think the focus should be with the shorts as we approach 0.812, 814. I think there could be some nice shorts back down into 0.79. So that's the plan for next week. We can speak about the buys later on. I'm not long-term bearish, just I think the next play is likely to be a pullback to the downside coming into such an area. So yeah, pretty bearish for New Zealand CAD from 0.812. Targets around 0.797 look good. Now we plan for next week. Okay, so next up we've got pound NZD. So it looks like this one as well, potentially running out a bit of steam. You can see in the weekly chart, overall very corrected to the upside, and this week's price action, a lovely bearish engulfing candle to the downside. So again, bearish engulfing candles are great to use, but when they are counter trend, they are less effective. Not necessarily less effective in terms of their success rate, just in terms of how well they work. For example, nice bearish engulfing candle here did give us 2 bearish weeks, then price of course reverse, versus a bullish candle in favor of a bullish trend. Nice bullish engulfing candle here, price really continued. It's just simply because we're in favor of the trend. But for now, really nice bearish engulfing candle, so implying that we're really struggling at this area. And I'm focusing at this particular level here because the weekly chart found a lot of resistance here for 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. And on the 5th week, we broke above. And then on this week candle, we came right back below. So to me, this looks like potentially a big fake out. So if you could see price come back and respect that level, if I can just tidy up a little bit, that does look like a nice place for a short to me, and potentially a sell back into support. Now, I'm not looking for anything crazy. I'm not saying that bearish engulfing candle on the weekly chart is going to give us a big reversal. It could do, but you want to play things a bit more cautious when you are counter trend. Be a bit more pessimistic than optimistic. You can always leave positions to run, take partials, so you can have optimism from that perspective. But when you are counter trend, you're leaving a lot on the table. More often than not, you're going to see price reverse against you, and it's going to be very annoying. So protect yourself in counter trend plays. I think this is a nice trade. Price is coming back into resistance. We're seeing selling pressure from a higher time frame. You can see a solid rejection of 2.27, shorts back into support, nothing too crazy. There's some areas down here as well. That could be a nice target if you want to push it a little bit further, but more so back into 2.22, I think looks healthy enough. So that's the plan next week for pound NZD. Okay, so up next we've got CAD Yen. So CAD Yen is interesting. So yen pair, we've been pretty bearish on this one. Oh, did not mean to do that. Been pretty bearish on this one, but we are running out a bit of steam and we're trading at some major support levels. So I'm not so enthusiastic about the sells anymore, and starting to back away, and potentially there might be some room to the upside. Looking at the weekly chart, monthly chart even, a lot of wicks starting to collect here. The 3-day chart as well, a lot of wicks here to the downside too. So we're seeing some red flags that the market could be losing some of its bearish pressure here. We could be seeing potentially a bit of a move to the upside. Now, when I jump on the 4-hour chart, the market's just sideways. We're finding support down here. We're finding resistance up there. There's nothing to do in terms of direction. If you're looking for some quick opportunities, catch some quick sells, quick buys, there might be some nice opportunities as we come back to retest support and as we come back to retest resistance. If we get to those levels again next week, see some rejection wicks, there might be a nice trade. I always like trying to catch the bounce from a high of a range or a low of a range into the 50%, because there's always a good chance price gets to at least the 50. Whether we see the full swing back to the high of the range or the full swing back to the low of the range is always a bit more tricky. Still a decent bet to say that price is going to reject the low to get to the high and vice versa. But you can even be more confident with price getting to the 50. So that's always a nice target to have, especially if you're going to drop to the lower time frames to trade it. But if you're looking for breakout, momentum, a bit more direction, a trend for CAD Yen, then I'm more so just waiting for the breaks of these levels here and seeing how we break them. If we break them for momentum and impulsive price action, impulsive candles, then we can look to follow that on retest. But as long as we stay in this area, I'm kind of just being a bit more neutral. So I think if you're looking for short-term plays for CAD Yen, it actually looks pretty good next week. Solid support, solid resistance above us. So looking to play that looks like a nice opportunity. Not looking for anything too crazy, just looking for price to react with these levels and bounce. And then once we can finally catch the breakout, then we can speak more about direction. Hopefully that'll be next week. But yeah, short-term plays for CAD look good. 101.8 and 105.250. Keep an eye on those levels for some shorts and longs, but still waiting for more information about the trend. So that's the plan next week for CAD. Okay, so over to pound USD. So pound USD, I was looking for sells this week, but it didn't really last too long. In fact, we actually hit my level, which I wanted to sell towards, which was 1.27 down here. We did that on Monday, and then we completely reversed, and we're looking very, very bullish. I tried to look for a sell on the retest of the range, but the price was having none of that, and it just continued to rally. Now that we've broken to the upside, we've seen a pretty strong close on the weekly chart. We are coming to some resistance on the left here, so being a bit cautious of that, but I do think price can get back to 1.34, which is more or less the high up there. Now that we have broken back to the upside of the range, this looks like the high low to me, and perhaps we're now going to continue to the upside. So what would be nice would be a retest of the range and now a continuation. So we can use that as support again, because that originally was the plan when we had the breakout over here. Last week, looking for the retest of the range for the continuation. We didn't get that. Price broke down. Now it's breaking back above again. So hopefully now we can get a successful retest and a opportunity to buy the market. Like I said, there is resistance just above us here, more or less around 1.313, So watch out for that. That could be a nice target to have. Don't have to shoot for the stars with every trade here. That could be a nice trade, especially if you can get an entry in the lower time frames. But I do think there is mileage here. So if you are looking for a bigger swing position, I do think pound USD looks good. If we can break through this level, of course, then it could be in a really nice position to sit and hold back to 1.34. I do expect there'll be more opportunities to buy pound USD, so it's not a make or break, but it's up to you how you want to trade that position. But yeah, I am looking at this as a higher low. I'm looking to follow this momentum for more upside. I'm still bearish in USD as well, so that fits that narrative. And now that we've got the range to our backs, looking for the retest of that and a continuation. But like I said, watch out for that resistance, which is just above us. But yeah, that's the plan next week for pound USD. Okay, so now on to pound CAD. So I'm pretty bullish on pound CAD. Looks like we'll come back into support and we're respecting it pretty well. You can see this week's candle, nice and bearish, but did pull back by the end. Just comfortably above support here. You can see a lot of wicks, a lot of rejection. So naturally resistance turning into support. I do think we can at least get a reaction to the upside. I'm not too completely convinced about a continuation back to highs and further. That could be the case, but I do think the trend has kind of hit potentially a bit of a top here, and we could be looking at maybe some type of reversal, or maybe just a bigger kind of pullback for the markets on the cards, taking out some major highs from back in 2018. So I'm not as enthusiastic about the continuation of pound CAD. I'm just more so looking at the bounce from very, very major key support for another reaction to the upside, and maybe we fall over. But again, that will be a discussion for perhaps next week at least. But for now, it does look like we're respecting the level. On the 4-hour chart, we are a little bit sideways, which is kind of a good thing when price comes into support. It means that buyers and sellers are kind of in equilibrium a little bit. So it means that originally the sellers were trying to break past that level and they're failing. As long as we don't show signs of that, then I'm expecting price to eventually push to the upside. So what we could be looking for here is a bit of a double bottom. We had first test, second test. Can we get a double bottom of this low? Another strong reaction, and then that naturally would be a nice buy opportunity. Full pound CAD, wrong tool. Full pound CAD stops below the low, and then targets, I'm looking at this area here at 1.835, back into that support there. Now we could go further. You could potentially be looking at push the swing high. I would suggest at least look at maybe partialing or maneuvering your stop loss to break even by this area here, just in case we do roll over. I think that's just good practice in general. But yeah, I'm not looking for anything crazy for pound CAD. Like I said, for those reasons I just mentioned, I do think price potentially might be looking to stall soon. But so far, holding on to support pretty well. As long as we can keep that up, could be some nice buys next week and targeting 1.835. So that's the plan there for pound CAD. Okay, so over to pound JPY. So I am looking at some upside this week. We've already had a really big move to the downside, and we have come back into some higher time frame support. So I do think price can see some upside, However, I'm only looking to see if we can get it back into this type of area where we did have this big range, and you can see we had a really big move to the downside. I think naturally a retest of that level would make a lot of sense. Potentially another lower high could form and we might come back down, but you can see price is starting to stall. We're starting to see some wicks here to the downside, and it looks like momentum is slowing. We've got some major support here, and if we can come back, double bottom there, I think that would be a nice place for a buy. Of course, wait for a strong entry signal, and that would be a nice opportunity to take with some decent risk to reward as well. If we can get a push back into 1.92, that would be a healthy target to have, and probably a nice place to start looking to short again. Again, probably not going to see that all happen in 1 week, so we'll talk about this maybe next week or whenever we get there. But for now, I like how price is situated here. We already saw a lot of momentum come to the upside in that candle, so evidence that buyers are stepping in. And we're seeing a very slow push down as well, which is evidence again that we probably won't break through support here as long as things stay corrective. So looking for buyers here at 185, targets 192, and now we plan next week for pound yen. Okay, so over to gold. So gold looking very, very bullish this week. Again, very difficult to find an opportunity with this one, with how bullish it is now. It's just about looking for those kind of lower time pullbacks and looking to follow momentum really. There's no kind of real targets to look at either, apart from just psychological levels. 3250 is the next big one, which is on the horizon. Have we actually got that? No, not quite. Then 3300 above that as well, not too far away. So that's kind of how I'm looking to target gold really. Just looking at those psychological levels and just following momentum. Really, really big push this week after a really big push back down. Looks like the range here on the left held pretty well and has sent us to the moon. So I'm looking at pullback on the retest of this high, 3160. We haven't come back to retest it yet. And altogether, there's a lot of momentum. So if as long as we can pull back slowly, correctively, I do think the buyers will just come back and take control of the price action for gold. Just don't want to see strong bearish candles like this, because typically when gold does have a bit of retracement, it normally starts off a pretty strong bearish move, and then that's what starts off the retracement. If it's nice and corrective and slow, we're just naturally going to see price continue. So that's the key thing to look out for gold in terms of if momentum is likely to continue or not. But for now, pullbacks into 3170 would be nice. We potentially might not even get that next week. And yeah, just looking to follow momentum. I think trading stop loss is probably the best way to manage things, because you don't know how far gold can go, and trading stop loss will just allow you to take advantage of that. So yeah, I think that's the best way to tackle gold. So yeah, pullbacks and more upside is the plan. Okay, so over to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's starting to look a bit more bullish now. Looks like we're starting to break through this trend line. This trend line's kind of held price since Jan, so it's done a pretty good job. I haven't quite respected that level. It would have been nice for us to actually come back and tested that area, 72, 74K. Would have been nice confluence for the buy, but it looks like we are starting to break through. I'm at least looking for a push back into resistance here at 92, 91K. Not too sure about pushback to all-time highs just yet for Bitcoin. It's a possibility, but this move has been so corrective. Hasn't really shown us any real strong momentum. So I do think the buyers are going to step in and see a nice rise. But of course, that trend line needs to go first. Looks like it's in the process. Current candles still live. Still got a bit more hours left before it does close. But it's not even really a strong breakout anyway. So still need to see a bit more momentum. But I do like the possibility for a push into this area in the next coming days. So drop into the 4-hour chart, looking kind of for break and retest opportunities. So it looks like we're breaking through this level quite nicely. If we can start to fire wicks, respect this level, that would be a nice place to base a trade. And just like that, you got yourself a decent risk to reward opportunity. And 92, not too far away, 91, that could be a decent opportunity on the lower time frame. So Bitcoin looking bullish. If we can clear the trend line very well, maybe a couple strong daily candle closures to add to the confidence of the breakout, then we can look for some retests and continuations. And yeah, looking for a push into 92K. So that'll be the plan for Bitcoin. Okay, so over to NZD USD, which is our bonus pair for this week. I really like this opportunity. Very, very bullish move. Again, we had a very bearish move the week prior, and then price just found support and reversed on a dime pretty much. You can see on the weekly chart here, there's our last bearish candle, big push to the downside, come back into support, price respected it, and of course now we've got a very strong bullish engulfing candle, and we're trading at some major support levels. We're not trading at the middle of nowhere. Look to the left, very strong low here back in 2022, price is respecting that. So I do think we can see some upside now, at least back to this area here, some very key support turn resistance, and some areas just above us here on the daily chart. You can see some nice support there, resistance just above 0.59. So those are the type of targets I'm looking to work with here with NZD USD. It's just about pullbacks. Now, I like this level here. The only thing I don't like about it is just it's a little bit too high. It doesn't give the market a chance to pull back a lot. So I also do like this area, but then again, I think that's a pretty deep level in terms of I'm not too sure if price will retrace all that way. So I think realistically, 0.576 looks good. And if you start to see some really strong rejection there, I'll be more than happy to take a trade. If it does fail, then we've got this level here below us at 0.566. And if you can get a pullback there, probably be looking at a very good risk reward if you can ride it back into resistance. And like I said, we've got some few daily targets, weekly targets to work out, to work towards there as well. So if that first opportunity doesn't work out, there will be an opportunity, or hopefully there will be an opportunity to make back the loss and a lot more as well. So risk reward playing a big role in this second trade opportunity. But yeah, NZD USD very bullish, again fits the narrative of USD weakness, so I really like the opportunity as well. Lots of momentum, so just looking for a pullback and more upside. And that does bring us to the end of the analysis, guys. So if you have found it useful, enjoyed it, please be sure to smash the like button. It does really help out.